breakdown. Come on. Yeah. Breakdown, come on.
Welcome back to 30 Minutes of Life, where we discuss our lives, our world, and everything in between in 30 minutes or less. I'm Ryan Anderson, and chatting about the world today with me, as always, is the Skype man, Hype Man.
Brad Learman.
What's up, buddy?
Not much, man. How are you?
I'm just glad to be recording again, man. It took a little dip there. You know, we had Silicon Valley Comic-Con and a lot of stuff along the way. Got to see some cool movies that we'll talk about on a future episode. And how's things been with you?
Not too bad. Still on the job hunt, but keeping myself a little busy. Making some stuff, designing some stuff and whatnot.
You been getting any callbacks?
No.
Okay. Well, someone out there is listening, and I guarantee you they're going to give you a call very soon. And our guest today for this special episode is...
Me, Zeno Robinson.
Welcome to the show.
I thought he was going to stick with me and then just...
just me.
And that was going to be like me who.
And you. And viewers like you.
No, this is great. And Zeno is joining us today as we're going to be talking for the next 30 minutes about what it's like to get into voice acting, which is probably where you know him from. And if you don't know, Zeno, tell him a little bit about yourself.
Hi, yeah, you could find me currently as the voice of Victor Stone's Cyborg in Young Justice Outsiders. I'm playing Prince Kelby in Netflix's Cannon Busters, which came out a couple weeks ago. And Remy in Disney Channel's Big City Greens. I think those are like the three consistent ones that I'm kind of doing right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we've actually had someone who's been working with Disney on one of their animated shows who's a fan of our content and was on as a guest of ours. He got excited to find out that you were going to be on our stuff. So,
what's his name?
Joey McCormick.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you know who he is, but yes, he also is a big fan. We're talking Disney, we're talking DC, we're going to be talking about all that good stuff, but really we want to get down to the gist of it, which is, what is it like to be in that voice acting world? So let's get to it. Zeno, let's just start off. Your background. How did you get into this world?
I got into it as all other voice actors get into it, which is kind of just by falling into it, honestly. I always wanted to be an actor, and I've been studying acting, since I was a teenager. So when I signed with my agency, and I tell the story a bunch of times, so I try to tell it different.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
So like when I signed to my agency, they initially signed me commercially, but then they sent me an audition for Ben 10.
Oh, really?
Force. Yeah. So my first ever voiceover job was voicing Alan in Ben 10 Alien Force.
I'm making a note of that one. I'm going to be going back and watching for your voice now.
Yeah, a lot of people actually kind of still tell me that they recognize my voice from then, which is interesting because that would imply that my voice has not changed in about 10 years.
Right.
So I don't know how to feel about that. If that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's probably a good thing.
I've probably been hearing the same thing for the last 10 years. When I moved out here 2 years ago from the Midwest, and I didn't tell you this, originally from Wisconsin, the first thing I did, I walked into like a California little shop or whatever, and then they were like, "Oh, yeah, you're not from here, are you?" I was like, What? No, I don't. I'm like, what did I do? And they're like, well, I can hear the accent. I'm like, really? I can never tell. But all my friends back home think I sound exactly like I did 10 years ago. So I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So that was how I got started. I just started taking classes after that, and a lot of auditions later.
So was this always a passion for you? Did you always think, man, I'm voice actor number one?
No, not really.
Okay.
Acting is really where it's at, and anything that falls under that is really where I thrive. So this, like, voice acting is just it's an expansion of that.
Okay.
I think I love it just as much as I love all acting in all shapes and forms it takes. So when I initially started, like wanting to be an actor that I think voice acting was like gonna be a thing. Not really, but I didn't know what it was at the time. And now that I do, I could do it forever. I could do it forever.
Yeah. So, have you ever been involved in a good deal of live action stuff, or has been your mainstay pretty much been in the voiceover animated kind of world?
I've auditioned for live action stuff. I used to audition. I still would like to. I've done the next live action thing anyone would be able to see me in is I'm in this web series called LA Macabre. The
Cool.
first season is available on Amazon Prime.
Ooh, all right.
It's this web series by Dan Ast, his name, and he with another friend of mine who we met through voice acting. Her name's Ryan Bartley. She's really a superstar, and I want to be like her.
Cool.
But that's like the next live action thing anybody would see me in for a while. But yeah, I've auditioned for stuff. Like I used to see things I auditioned for and be like, oh, I remember auditioning for that and stuff like that.
So I gotta ask. Oh yeah, go ahead, Brad.
No, I would imagine voice acting is just a sort of extension from just live acting. I mean, you're learning how to change the inflection of your voice and how to express yourself without anybody really watching. And at the same time, you're probably like sort of like, I wouldn't say acting while you're doing your reading, but you're really getting into the reading, and that probably by extension would help you in any of your live acting auditions.
Oh yeah, you absolutely have to. You absolutely have to be acting the entirety of the time. Like you can't voice act without having a fundamental understanding of acting, and you can't excel in voice acting without having a greater understanding of acting, because that's what it is at the end of the day, as all acting is.
Right.
So the only difference is, you don't have a film crew. There's no large film crew shooting all day. You're in a booth.
Yeah, kind of like the cameras in your head and on yourself in that way.
Yeah. And you have to create the environment. You know what I mean? Like, so sometimes you're on set and the environment's created for you. When you're in the booth, you have to do all that yourself.
Do they typically put you in a booth by yourself, or are you sort of surrounded by like your other like castmates and whatnot?
That varies from project to project.
Okay.
I love the group recordings. Young Justice, most of those are group recorded, but because they have so many superstars on the cast, not everybody is available all the time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so because everybody on that, mostly everybody on that cast is like working multiple sessions a day and every day. Not everybody is available, but for those, yeah, we had group sessions. So like there'd be times where I would be in the room with like Sarah Fuzzle and Nolan North, Jason Spizak. Like those are anybody you saw Vic around most of the time.
Pretty much, yeah. You're having a group conversation. You're probably doing that in the booth, right?
Yeah. So most of the time, like my first 2 episodes actually was just me. The first 2 episodes that I did, Young Justice was just me in there. But like Disney, like for Big City Greens, it's usually just me. And I think Cannon Busters was just me because it's dubbing. So.
Okay, that makes sense. So I just got to throw this in here because you were talking about it. Was there any moment when you were in the booth or recording with anyone that you just had like that geek out moment? Like, I don't know, seeing like Danica McKellar or something like that?
Every single time.
Every single time.
Every session. Absolutely. Every session. Every single freaking session.
That's awesome.
Legitimate. Even my callback that I got before I was even on the show, when I asked the production coordinator, Laura, I was like, who's the producers on this? And they were like, oh, Greg and Wiseman and Brandon Vietti. That was the first time. I was like, oh my God, like I know what this is. Like I'm freak out. I'm
so cool.
Like I'm about to go in there and meet the producers of my favorite freaking cartoon in the world. And so that was the first time. But like, yeah, I would have sessions, and I remember the first time I had to sit right next to Nolan North, and I was like, oh my God, like this is, Nathan Drake and
right.
Superboy, and he's just such a pro. And then him and Troy Baker in the same room on opposite sides of me was even crazier. I mean, literally every single time. Danica McKellar, Stephanie Lemmelin, Jason Spizak. Every single session.
Right.
I didn't even have a session with Corey Payton, but I met him in passing and still geeked out. Like, yeah, Greg Sipes. But I knew Greg Sipes. I knew Greg Sipes from Ben 10.
Oh, did you? Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, he was Kevin.
Oh, that's right.
So,
yeah. So,
but
yeah,
what's up?
with Greg Weissman, well, we brought this up way back. Brad and I went to C2E2, man, that was probably about 2 or 3 years ago now. And we talked to, I think Brad was checking out swords, but I went quick over to Greg Weissman and I was like, hey man, I feel bad about the show. Like I would love to see you come back. And he just kind of gave me this wink and I forget how he quoted it, but he was like, just keep paying attention or something like that. And I was like, oh, It's coming. I think it will. Yeah. If we keep putting that belief out there that it could happen, buy the toys, all that stuff. Did you ever think that they were going to bring it back?
No, honestly, to be honest, I didn't. I know networks and I know like a lot of it never, like what Greg and Brandon always kept saying when we were talking about it, like this never happens. Like fan support almost never brings back a show. So I personally didn't think it was going to happen. Up until like, I think I saw like an Instagram post or something that Greg had put out. Like there's like stuff in the works, just keep binging YJ, and then when that was popularized, and you're talking to somebody who like literally petitioned for this to come back. I signed petitions. I was doing whatever. I complained on the internet,
as many of us did. Yep.
So I would just keep it rolling in my room.
Yeah.
Like whenever I had a chance, just I would just keep watching it over and over, or even not watching it, but just keeping it on. But I didn't think that would reach anybody. So I'm very, very glad that it did.
Yeah, it's weird how these petitions can really bring some projects back to life. Like, I know that they were talking about shopping around Krypton and trying to bring that back. And I know there's the petition to save Swamp Thing and all that stuff.
Right. Is it safe to say I think that's because of Young Justice?
I think so, right? Yeah.
Because it worked for Young Justice, like a lot of other shows and fans like are starting to come into their power and realize that they kind of can control the fate of a show.
It's possible, and plus with other streaming like different platforms, I think the possibility of picking up shows that are canceled by like a syndicated show or station will like has the potential of being picked up by like a Hulu or an Amazon or
even Netflix. I don't know. I thought Netflix was going to bring us back when we came back. I thought because Netflix was so instrumental that we were going to come back on Netflix.
Yeah, right. Well, wasn't that going to be the case for? Oh yeah, Lucifer got on there. So I mean,
Lucifer, I think Brooklyn Nine-Nine, or am I? No.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine was Hulu.
Okay.
Hulu. Well, no. They were Fox, and then they went to NBC now. But yeah, you can stream them on Hulu if you want to, though. Yeah. The one thing I was thinking about for you, though, and maybe it's because it's my show that I really wanted to come back. There was a petition for quite a while, and I think it's still kind of lingering out there to bring back Green Lantern, the animated series. And I would love for you to be a voice on that if they ever did.
Oh, I'm on board. I really enjoyed Green Lantern, the animated series. That was like in that era where like those two shows, like Young Justice and Green Lantern, I think got canceled around the same time, along with Beware the Batman. And I was just like, man, they're just axing all of their story-driven action superhero stuff. Yeah,
like Cartoon Network just dropped them all out from underneath them, and I didn't really understand it. And then they kept coming back with, "Oh, it's the toys," and man, if they can bring back Young Justice, I would love to see them bring that back.
I like Green Lantern, the animated series, to come back too. I'd be super, super on board with that. It was a great show. It had great emotional depth and complexity, and it was like one of the first Bruce Timm CGI shows, which was interesting.
Yeah.
To watch. It was great. Yeah, but there is one other show that I'd rather come back before that.
I would love to hear it.
Symbiotic Titan. I think that that should come back before anything else. I love Symbionic Titan.
I always heard good things, and one of the guys from our group chat that we have, he's big on anime, but he always comes back to that show too. His name's Mike. He's a great guy. I've never watched the show, but I would love to see it.
So good.
Who would you play on there?
I don't know who I would play on Symbionic Titan, and I don't even know who I would play on Green Lantern, the animated series.
I mean,
maybe if they made a new Lantern, or maybe Kyle Rayner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I
because
could do Kyle.
well, I mean, I don't know if you ever feel this in your craft and everything. The feeling of being maybe typecast because nationality and that's
race,
or race or anything like that. But yeah, being Kyle Rayner, I think your voice fits that perfectly. If you wanted to be an alien, I'd be all up for that too. I mean, anything should be up for you. You're fantastic at what you do.
I entirely agree with that. That's why I said that. That's why I said, I was like, why would I even limit myself to Jon Stewart? I wouldn't be able to play Jon Stewart, first of all.
Yeah. I mean,
that just wouldn't work.
That's more of a Carrie Payton kind of thing.
Yeah, that's Carrie Payton. That's Phil Lamar. That's, Kevin Mike Richardson. That's any one of those guys. But yeah, I would totally rock the heck out of a Kyle Rayner. I would be amazing. Actually, you know what? If I finished reading a Green Lantern run called The Omega Men.
Yes, so good, right? The most recent one?
Good, yes. With Kyle, when he's stranded on that planet.
Yeah.
And oh my god. I wish, I would love for that to be like an animated feature.
Yeah, or even just like a movie where they do like the 2-parter thing, like they did with Death and Return of Superman. Even something cool like that would be.
It was so good, and I would rock the mess out of a Kyle Rayner. But yeah,
I would definitely put in that petition for you right now. If they can make that happen,
Let's
put you in.
Hashtag Kyle Rayner.
I feel like I'm at Starbucks and I overheard a conversation of two people freaking out about a pumpkin latte. Because I have no clue what was going on.
I don't know what they're talking about.
It's okay, Mr. Marvel. We're just having a DC chat here. But
no, I understand.
How cool is that, though? You mentioned just a little bit ago all those names like Carrie Payton and them. To even be kind of in that same conversation with them, like, is that like a boost of confidence? Is it humbling? What is that for you?
It's just an incredible honor, honestly, because these are all actors who I've been listening to growing up. I mean, these guys are like my heroes. Like Phil Lamar. I remember the first time I took a Phil Lamar class, because I took a class with Phil Lamar.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah, like I wore my Static shirt because I had to.
Of course. Yes.
Like, Static is part of the reason why I started like acting and wanting to get into acting in cartoons. So I just think being even in that mix is just incredibly humbling. It's incredible. It's an incredible honor, and I just want to be as good as those guys. Those guys are incredibly talented. They're incredibly talented, and I can learn so much. So. Yeah, it's a huge honor.
So I kind of want to steer the ship back into the middle here. The one thing I wanted to give to our listeners was kind of that understanding, that entry point, if you will, of like, how would you tell someone else out there who is interested or just dipping their toes in the water into voice acting? What would you say is the best way to find your way in?
Find your way in?
Or build your way in?
Yeah. And I get asked this question a lot.
I can imagine.
Yeah. I just think like I try to give something maybe something different every time, because I just don't think there's any one way in. I think the internet is like your best friend right now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's there's so many helpful tools at your disposal on the internet. I want to be a voiceactor.com. D. Bradley Baker made a great website.
Oh, really?
About,
okay.
About getting into voice acting and how to do it, and recommended tools and recommended techniques and recommended, I think that, so that's one thing. And then the voice actor resource guide is a great tool. It has all the comprehensive list of agencies, studios, classes, where to get a demo made and how much it costs. It's just, and they update it monthly. So I'd say, use the internet. There's so many pay-to-play websites, voices.com, voices123. Take a demo. Once you make your demo, put it up there. Put it
Okay.
up on the internet. If even if it's just on Twitter for right now,
Yeah, because I literally had one guy, Josh, who just hit us up in the comments, and he was just asking us, like, do you literally just take a recorder of yourself and or on your phone or whatever, do a bunch of silly voice and just send it off digitally to someone and then hope that it takes? And I was like, well, I don't really know about that, but
I don't think it's that cut dry. I
Right.
don't think it's that simple either. Like, voiceover is work. It's not just silly voices.
Yeah.
It is a lot. Like, my demo was a lot of work. I stayed up writing it. I went to a recording, a place to record it, editing, getting sound effects put on it. So it sounds, keeping it under a minute. There's so much that goes into it. You can't just record it, on your phone.
Right.
I mean, that would be great.
Oh, of
I just
course.
think that like, you're sending out something that you want people to professionally hire you,
Right.
to pay you to do. So you have to give them, something for them to want to go, I will pay this person this amount of money to come in here and do that. They have to have enough confidence in you and in your work
Exactly.
that you deliver. So I think you have to take your craft and your art as serious as they take their money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. So as silly as it might sound, how much does video get incorporated? Because I know you'll see these guys, they'll do their YouTube thing, they'll run through, clips or dialogue from certain things, and they'll cut into like a certain package. Do you feel that video, as ironic as it might sound, has its own place in giving you that one up, that little extra notch in
of course,
standing out from the
definitely. I
crowd?
think there's some people have like a visual demo up, which is kind of like a reel of their stuff. Like I cut together a visual demo, which is pretty much like all the stuff I've been in. I like kind of cut scenes together and put it into one video.
I'd love to see that. That's awesome.
Yeah, like people that sometimes it's good for people who are hiring to see physically.
Yeah.
Like the changes in characters, and then they can also see what the characters look like, the different kind of characters you play. I'd say don't rule out video.
Yeah, because from everything I've seen, like if you watch, there was a video I saw. I think it was all to promote Toy Story. It was just Tom Hanks and the way he emoted and his facial expressions and really how he throws his energy into his performance when he's doing that, and how he gets that, the kind of shrieking call to everyone, like, hey guys, we gotta get running here or whatever, and like to get everyone to go. Like he really throws his body into it, and it's very interesting to watch him create that performance, especially when you can see the video component to it.
Yeah, that's absolutely what you have to do. You have to get your whole body involved when you're in there. Acting it comes from the body. Usually if I see someone like in a booth not emoting with their body, I'm like, oh, well,
oh, he's one of those
use your
guys.
body,
Okay.
man, because it comes from there.
Yeah.
Like the more you physicalize, the more it becomes, I think, more realistic. The more it becomes,
it feels more tangible, right?
Dimension. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, what better way to get yourself into the character, whether it's live action or in the booth you're in, than to actually like try and take on those same characteristics physically.
My first episode of Spider-Man, which was like, I had a bunch of heavy hitters in there too. Max Middleman, Robbie Damon, Ben Diskin. Max was reading a line as Harry Osborn, and it was him laughing at something on his phone. So Max held an imaginary phone and laughed at it. And that seems like a minor thing to do, right? Like, he's just, you're holding an imaginary phone that we're not even seeing because it's voice recording for an animation. But it added a dimension to Max's performance that I think wouldn't have been there had Max not done that.
Exactly. And it seems like such a little thing for so many people. And I try not to do this to like, people know that I'm already going to be in the new FX show Devs when it comes out. I'm not like it's a cool thing. I'm so glad to have been a part of it. And
Congrats.
I'm
That's
I'm
awesome.
I know, and Alex Garland, super awesome guy, and that cast is fantastic. I can't wait for people to see it. But when I did it, I know, I was just a, extra and all that stuff, and I've had closer chances to have speaking parts and all that, but every little thing is important to me. So while we're there, they're like, hey, we just want you to kind of go across the scene, just look like a guy from the tech sector, just kind of just run your path and do your thing. And I'm like, okay. And then at some point, one person was whispering like, well, we're kind of doing the same thing. I was thinking to myself, well, how about I mix it up a little bit? So I pulled out my cell phone, and then they stopped and they were like, do more of what he's doing. And I was like, awesome. So I just kind of like felt what that character would be doing. Like, I don't want to steal from anyone's thunder or take away from the scene, but just a little bit of something to make me feel like I'm not just like this 2D character in the background. Yeah.
Yeah, you were in the mind of the character, and you made a very specific choice, and that specific choice worked. Specificity is very important.
Yeah. So, go, Brad.
What are some of your like funniest like early stuff? Like, are there any like funny memories that you have of like starting out and then finally ending up to where you are now?
Funny, like maybe my old demo, like listening back to how not that great it was.
Do you feel you've learned a lot as you've kind of come up in the process?
Oh, absolutely. I've learned so much coming up. Through mostly through failure, like mostly through, and like listening back to stuff I've done like years ago, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And being like, wow, like I definitely grew. Like taking classes. Classes are so important. And that's another thing for like people who want to get into it. Go take classes. Like classes will let you know if this is what you want to do or not. That it's such. I love being in classes, taking classes and growing. And I take some with Charlie Adler. He has this way of bringing something out of you, but also pointing out potentially your bad habits or what's holding you back. And I love stuff like that.
I didn't know Charlie was your guy. I actually follow him on Twitter because I was trying to pick up some tips myself. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my dude. That's like Uncle Charlie for me right there. Like he kind of just changed the way I worked, and my first voiceover teacher was Tony Gonzalez. He was great. He taught me everything I know. He got me he like when I first started, he was where I turned to, and he kind of got me familiar with and comfortable in a booth and with all the terms and with everybody important, incredibly instrumental. He works with a lot of kids, so I worked with him, as a kid up until like into my 20s, and I still work with him, to this day. I still go in from time to time, workshop things, fine tune things, but he's great, Yeah, Charlie's my guy. I take Charlie all the time whenever I can. Tony doesn't hold classes anymore.
Yeah, that's
but
so cool.
I can just call him,
Yeah.
in that order.
So if I recall correctly, you were a part of the Friday the 13th video game. Is that correct?
I was.
How is it like to do the video game side of the voiceover work? Was it any different, or do you approach it any differently?
I approach video games sort of differently, but not by much. Like a lot of the like what it's supposed to be, like the standard is like video games are just more cinematic and therefore they're more grounded.
Yeah.
They're less like big as opposed to animation. But
yeah.
Everything's kind of going to grounded nowadays. So I just try to make everything as grounded and realistic as possible. But yeah, so I'd approach a game maybe just a little bit more realistic, a little bit more cinematic.
Okay.
But that game specifically, I didn't have to do a lot. There wasn't a lot of dialogue. There was a lot of screaming. That's usually a thing about games.
I believe it, yeah.
A lot of dying. But
was there more to work with for you in Metal Gear when it came out?
Yeah, so Metal Gear, which was Chris Zimmerman, there was more to work with because the differences were that I actually had actual scenes in Metal Gear. Like I had actual dialogue between characters, which we eventually went back in Friday and did with some DLC. But in Metal Gear, there was dialogue, for like cutscenes, or what were supposed to have been cutscenes.
You're not just running scared for your life, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for that one, it was just very much just kind of just more grounded, more cinematic. Trying to keep it conversational, like I'm just a real guy having a conversation with a real person.
Okay, yeah. And I gotta say too, with you posting on Twitter all the time, you're the reason that I started getting into Craig of the Creek.
Oh man, thanks.
Yeah.
Craig Creek is great. I freaking love that show.
I didn't know what it was going to be about. Like, I was at a hotel last year for my job overnight, and it came on. I was like, this is an interesting show. And then I like passed out halfway through because I was just so tired from work that day. And in the back of my mind, I was like, oh yeah, one of these days I'll come back and I'll check out that show, see how it's coming along. And then you just kept posting up about it. Little did I know that you were even one of the additional voices on it.
Yeah.
And like that whole little Pokemon one that they did that you threw up there, I lost it over that. I was like, oh my gosh, it like hit me in all the childhood feels with all that. That was great.
Craig of the Creek is a show that I am incredibly blessed to be a part of. It is like so good, and it is so much of what I've wanted in the show. And I would have loved that show as a kid. I love that show now, but I mean, like as a kid, that would have been my favorite show.
I gotta say, I love that a lot of the new shows, even though I know, as we get older and all that stuff, like some of it doesn't always hit us like on the nose with like, oh, I can relate to this because I'm that age demographic growing up with this, like,
right.
Thinking like Dexter's Lab or Johnny Bravo or whatever when we were kids. But like every time I see these little shows and they have these little nostalgic moments, I'm like, these are just as good as the stuff we grew up with. Like,
yeah.
And I'm falling back in love with some of these cartoons. Cartoon Network's been doing a great job.
Cartoon Network, Disney's been doing great. They've been doing
True.
great work. Big City Greens is such a good show. Amphibia is such a good show. Disney's been putting out quality stuff as well.
Is Big City Greens available for everyone, or is that like a streaming option for folks?
That's everybody. Everybody can watch it.
Fantastic. So before we get to our 30-minute clock here, I just wanted to find out what is the future for Zeno?
I have a couple things coming up that I probably can't say.
Hey, if you got to zip the lip, I totally get it. But stuff you're excited about, nevertheless.
Season 4 of Young Justice.
Yeah, there you go.
We haven't started yet, but it's happening, and that already is great. I'd love to get into creating, writing, just get more involved with my career in a more creative aspect. So that's kind of what I want to do. Maybe I'll try to make a show.
Have you pitched anything or started writing on anything for getting something? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've started a project to hopefully pitch to someone someday.
Oh, that's really exciting.
Yeah. So I'd love to just put out content and kind of start, as an actor, I am a storyteller, and I can tell stories also through my words. And so I'd love to start doing that.
So yeah, and then with season 4 of Young Justice coming out, is there any little tidbits, or did we get enough teases at the end of season 3 to give us an insight, or do you have any more little tips about what's coming in the future here?
I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret.
Oh, okay. Ooh.
I never know what's going on.
Oh, of course.
Wow, spoiler! Come on.
I almost never know what's going on, even when I'm on it. Like, for example, I had no idea that what was going to happen in the last 2 episodes of Young Justice.
Oh, really?
I had no
wow.
idea that was what it did. No idea. Didn't know.
So I gotta ask, did you know about the episode titles, how it was making for the anti-life equation?
Nope. Had no idea.
Oh, as soon as I started putting the pieces together, I'm like, holy crap, they're really doing it. I didn't think they were going to get to the anti-life in this season.
I didn't even know. And I saved everyone from the anti-life equation.
You really did. Oh,
no idea.
Oh. That's got to be such a thing to just go in and do, like, I don't know if you guys have table reads with the voiceover part of it, but man, just coming in and reading the page and knowing that you're like the first person to see that's got to be such a heart-stopping moment every time you do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, even they send me the scripts ahead of time to read. I mean, every time I got a script and Young Justice Outsiders was on it was just like a wow moment, just like a God is good moment, like I can't believe this is my life and I'm really recording for this show.
Right.
Every single time. And yeah, and what I liked about not knowing anything was that because I'm such a fan, I got to spend a lot of the show being a fan, like not knowing what was going to happen next. So that was a cool part too, even though I would be confused. like I said, didn't know it was going to end that way.
Yeah.
Had no idea that there was
Right.
any hints at anything happening in season 4. So, Rich, who is the head of the YJ Files, we did a
cool.
cast. We did like a rap party, and he was there. And at the ending, he just went insane because he loves the Legion.
I was just going to say, yeah, how awesome.
He went crazy, so it was really cool to see.
So is there even though we're, it's all being workshopped and everything right now, do you believe that there's a big plan to have Cyborg integrate in with the Legion in some capacity next season?
I mean, I hope so. I don't know about the Legion because I feel like the Legion has its own mythos.
Yeah, it's true. And we've never seen those characters interact, Cyborg and them. I mean, it's such a thing that it would be a moment, especially in terms of comic booky nerdom and all that stuff, for you to have the first kind of interaction with that character and those characters. I would love to see that, especially for you. I mean, how cool would that be?
That would be dope. I mostly just want Vic to punch Darkseid in the face.
Hell yeah!
I just want him to fight Darkseid. I think that would be. I just want Vic and Violet to just 2v1 Darkseid in a really cool fight because or Vic and Vi with some of the new gods fighting Darkseid's army.
Yeah.
I hope whatever season we do next, we kind of actually get to fight Darkseid, and a lot of people involved in Apocalypse and Tech kind of get that in there.
I mean, there's so many things you could do with it. I could just see the Legion coming from the future back into the past and all of them swarming on Darkseid, or you just taking your rage out on him too, because Darkseid has it coming for all the shit that he's put you and the rest of the Young Justice team through. I mean, my God, there's so many things that they can do, and that's why I love the season so much, because I feel like they just open the door to so many more possibilities.
This is true. This is very, very true.
Do you feel that Vic has some unresolved issues, or do you feel like he got a lot of it out of his system after a lot of the stuff with his dad and everything that happened over the course of this season?
I think he's resolved pretty much. He's pretty much on good terms with his dad. I think any kind of issues that would be next for Vic is just how do you integrate back into society?
Belonging and everything.
Yeah. And that's usually kind of where a lot of the comic stories go.
Mm-hmm.
But I really feel he how does he integrate? Does he still hold on to his dreams of being a football player? Is that dead now? Do you still, do you just hang out with the heroes all the time? How do you,
How do you move into that next phase in your life, right? Yeah.
How do you go grocery shopping?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I think that would be kind of his next thing, is just kind of being okay, cool. I'm embracing this now, but it will be difficult for me to kind of try to operate like everything's normal,
Yeah.
Because it's not, Do I get a girlfriend? Does anybody want to date me? Because half of my face is metal.
I think you're working with some pretty badass stuff there. I think ladies would love you.
I think they would too.
Right.
I think Vic is very handsome. I think he's a catch.
Exactly.
I mean, come on.
He's peacocking in the best kind of way, right?
Yeah. I mean, he can see all your text messages and stuff, and that's kind of weird.
I
but
mean,
just
yeah.
don't do
You
anything.
keep that on the DL though.
Right, just don't do anything that
But
might
he can be the human. He can be the human autocorrect. I mean, we're not seeing the whole picture here.
Right,
Right.
exactly. You need help with your essay, babe? I got you.
Exactly.
Let me just research the internet for you right quick. Get you. You want that job application? Boom! I sent it right to the manager.
I got that hookup. That's great. Oh man. Well, it has been such a pleasure talking to you, and I hope that our fans out there got to learn a lot about not just you, your coming up in the industry, but how maybe even to break in themselves. So, obviously, yes, I want to thank you, and I want to tell everyone, you can always find us on Facebook at the Nerd Rage Podcast, Twitter at the Nerd Rage Pod, Twitter, Instagram. We got the website up and running. We're going to have new reviews, and we're always looking for new faces. If you want to be a writer, we are doing paying gigs now. So if you want to hit us up, get us on our email, which is nerdragepod@gmail.com. Libsyn.com has all of our episodes there as well. If you want to go straight to the source, pretty much anywhere podcasts can be found, as you guys all know, you can find us there. The T Public store is up with our merch, and our Patreon is always active. So let us know if there's anything that we missed, and we will find a way to put ourselves there. And where can they find you, Zeno?
You can find me on all social media at Childish Gamzino. On Instagram, there's an underscore, so Childish _Gamzino, and on Twitter at Childish Gamzino, and that's it. Or IMDb, you could always IMDb me and look at my resume and look at everything that I've ever done.
I still love that name, by the way.
What?
That you were able to get Childish Gamzino.
Oh, Childish Gamzino. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, Don was my favorite, man. It was cool that I got to voice match him as Landau. So
man, you've had such an awesome career, and you're just getting started, honestly. So, well, our 30 minutes are up, but we will reset the clock, and we will be back again with a new guest, a new topic, and we'll see you guys again next week.
Ready? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.